Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today, it is January 3rd of 2020. The 2020. It's now been like 3 months since I last uploaded, and I'm not sorry about that. Just so you're aware. So today we have returned. I have a speed paint of a commission I did for my Aunt Joy. It's her and Uncle Bobby standing in front of Machu Picchu. It's very pretty. It took me a very long time. And there's about 15 minutes of footage that I guess I could edit longer if I really wanted to, but I don't. I figured that today I would do a story time because it seemed like something that would be easy to record without writing a script or doing anything funny, because I just haven't been wanting to do that. Yeah, I just want to do art and be done with it, but I also feel like there needs to be something more to the speed paints here on YouTube than just the music in the background. So obviously I need to tell you something entertaining. So I thought that today's story could be the story of how I told my crush that I liked him and then died, and now we're dating, and that could be a fun story to tell you. It's actually a really interesting story because, in case any of you did not know, I am the most emotionally constipated idiot that's out there in this universe, and it's incredibly hilarious. Even to me, and I'm the one that has to deal with it. Like, it's not funny at the time, but it's really funny after the fact when I get to look back on it and go, wow, that's something that I did. So, the story begins actually way back in my freshman year when I met this kid. I'd been friends with my best friend Austin for a good few years. I met him in 5th grade, so about 4 years, give or take. We get to school at the beginning of the school year, and we sit down together, and we hang out, and I meet Austin's new boyfriend, and I see this kid, and I noticed him, from the beginning of the year, actually. I noticed him sitting over there in the corner. He was very quiet. He was a new kid. He'd just moved in, and I was like, he seems lonely. I don't really want to talk to him. So I left him to his business. He seemed like he was doing alright, sitting over there, listening to his music, whatever he was up to, you know. But I always noticed him. He just seemed to be there. And I think that was really funny to say that because it was the next day that I actually spoke to him. So we went the whole first day without ever speaking. But the next day, we get to school. He's still there. I noticed him at morning time. And we go through the first class, and I notice him again at break. And then for our second class, he's actually in the class with me. So I still don't really talk to him. I don't really see a reason to. He's not talking to me. We're sitting sort of close together, but you know, we're busy doing class things here in the class, as you do in class, right? But then we get to our third class of the day, and he's in that class too. Cool. My best friend Austin also happened to be in that class. So we get into the class, and this class was set up really weird. There were like 9 different tables. It's either 9 or 12. I can't remember exactly which, but they were set up in 3 columns, each either 3 or 4 back. So Austin and I chose to sit at the back all the way to the right of the classroom, in the back right, together, because I like to sit in the back and he liked to sit with me, so that's just how it worked, right? This new kid, whose name is Sean, he sat right in front of us. Like, we sort of invited him to sit kind of near us, because it didn't seem like he had anyone to talk to. So I was like, hey, why don't you just come over here? We're not going to bother you too much if you don't want to be bothered. And he was like, sure, okay. So he came and sat down. And when we got into this class, the teacher was actually super cool. We started it with a game. Basically, we all stood up and we said 2 things, a truth and a lie, and the class had to guess which one was which, right? So we all had lots of fun doing a bunch of crazy junk, talking about this thing. So this kid, Sean, stands up in front of the class, and he says, I know the true meaning of being alone. That was his truth. I can't remember for the life of me what he said as his lie, but that was what he said as his truth. And when he said that was what he said was true, I was like, bitch, we gotta be best friends. That's just how this has got to be now. So clearly, we had to be friends. So from about that day onward, we became the trio of best friends. It was me and Austin and Sean. I like to say that we were each other's Sherlock to each other's Watson, because we can explain each other to everyone, yet we cannot explain ourselves to everyone. It's really weird. I'm not really sure how to explain this euphemism, because I don't think it makes that much sense to anyone else. It's one of those things. we're the triangle, It's just how it is. And we've been good friends. So by the end of our first semester, he'd moved back in with his parents. That's a whole other story that he can tell. I'm not going to go into that. But he'd moved back down to a few towns over. He lives about an hour and a half away now, but we kept in touch over Discord because clearly we kept in touch over Discord. Why would we not? So years would pass. Not too many years, I'm only a junior. But years would pass. We don't visit very often because he does live an hour and a half away. I've only been to his house now a total of 3 times. I only count 2 of them because the second time I ever went down there, we went off to a park instead of staying anywhere at his house. But this entire time, we've been talking over Discord. We've been friends. We're still my trio. It's just how it's been. So about... I'm not entirely sure when this sort of feeling started, but it was really weird because what happened is I ended up with a crush on not just Sean, but 2 different people, which I thought was incredibly strange. So there was a lot of me being really nervous about what the hell was going on in my head because, that's really kind of weird. It was a lot of deliberating. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. There was a lot of journaling, and I'm not entirely sure when it all happened. I just know that it happened during football season, so from August to October, because this all came to a head in October. That I remember. I have it written on my calendar because I thought it was hilarious afterwards and I needed to mark the day. That's how crazy this is. So regardless, I had a crush on these 2 different people, and because I am the hopeless romantic that I am, I was like, oh my fucking god, I can't. Emotions are hard, sir. I really just want one of them to know. Right, and there was just a lot of confusion happening in my brain, and my brain could not handle this bullshit, is basically what happened. And eventually, the emotions for one person went away, but the other one was still there, and of course that person would be Sean, because Sean is, who I sent my letter to, which I think is really funny. Austin actually said years ago, he was like, you 2 are going to end up together. And I was like, oh, sure we are, Austin. Sure we are. But, he was right. Of course he was right. So the feelings for one of these people, he was a kid in band who played cymbals, kind of disappeared, alright? I didn't really, he's a friend of mine, and that's how it's going to stay, really. But I still really liked Sean. So I decided that I should probably, tell him about this, but I wasn't sure if I really wanted to or not. So what I did instead of actually telling him was I wrote him a letter that I didn't know whether or not I was going to send it. I wrote it, and then I dated it, and I sealed it with a wax seal, and I put it in my backpack. And this, of course, only lasted a day. I was going to send that letter, I figure. But, I wrote down exactly what I wanted to tell him and sealed it up so that I could not change it, and sat on it for a little bit and really thought about whether or not I wanted to tell him this because, in my head, I thought it was sort of ridiculous that I had a crush on 2 different people, even if it was, past at this point. I thought that maybe these thoughts that I was having, hey, I would like to perhaps be with this person, were not real, if that makes any sense. It felt like they were somehow less valuable because at any point in time they were shared with another person. I don't know if any of that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but whatever. Of course, I sent this letter. I sent it on a Wednesday in October. I can't remember which Wednesday, but I sent it. I remember telling Sean it was coming. He knew that it existed. He actually picked the color wax for the seal. He just didn't know it was for him. When I told him that the letter was for him, his actual reaction was, oh, that's interesting. I was like, what? He says, I thought it'd be for another friend that I don't know. And I was like, okay, Sean, didn't know I had that many friends that you don't know. So, apparently in Mississippi, it takes about a week for letters to go, because I sat for a week genuinely terrified. I was panicking inside and out, waiting for this to get to him so he could read it. So the following week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not quite sure which exact day it was. It takes about a week, not exactly a week, so I guess Tuesday. I had gotten home from school. I was doing my algebra homework, so I was sitting upstairs on the living room floor with my laptop doing my algebra homework, right? Sean is a very avid role player, and I don't role play that much. But at the time, I was sort of role playing a little bit more because, of course, I was. Why would I not be role playing? I don't know. But he'd asked me earlier if I wanted to role play, and I was like, sure, let me get home first. So I was home. I was almost done with my homework. I had a couple more problems left, so I shot him a message. I was like, hey, Sean, man, I'm good to role play now if you want to. Cool. So I sent that message, and I was working on my homework, and he sends me a message back. So I click off of my homework tab to look at Discord, and it says, hey, comma, ellipses, I, got and read your letter. And I have to say, folks, I sort of died. I think that perhaps I really did die and then came back to life and then went back to hell and then came back to life again and then died all over again just so I could do all of that over again. That is how freaked out I suddenly became. And then, after I did all of that dying and coming back to life and dying again, I shoved myself so far into that last question I had on my algebra homework because I was slightly terrified. If you cannot tell what I'm saying, I was very scared. That was panic-inducing. And I don't understand why, but it was very panic-inducing. So I finished that algebra problem, and then I clicked off of it and closed all of my homework tabs. And I got back to Discord, and I was like, oh no, 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 oh no. It was not very fun. So we had a conversation about it, right? And life went on. The eventual thing that it came to was I'd be okay with going on a date some point. I can't remember exactly when he said, but he said he'd be alright with going on a date, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant. Really, I didn't. I was and am a very confused mess. So, for a while, I sat and thought about it, and thought about it some more, and I got a little bit concerned. The one thing you need to know about Sean is that I call him a resident sociopath, and it's not because he's a sociopath, it's because he doesn't emote in the way one might expect another human being to emote, if that makes sense. His emotions are very, low-key, downplayed. You're not gonna just see them hanging out on the street. That's not how that works with Sean. Sean doesn't... He's not as explosive as Carolyn can be. Because Sean is that way, it's sometimes really difficult to tell. He's a very difficult person to read. So I wasn't entirely sure where we stood. And one night, a few weeks after this initial conversation post his getting my letter, I was finally like, okay, I'm just gonna ask, because I needed some confirmation is what happened. I desperately needed confirmation is what it was. So one evening at about, say, midnight, 1 a.m, I finally asked him. I was like, Sean, do you actually like me? And then I went and hid in my pillows, and he responded, yes, very confused, and I was like, Sean, please just answer my question. So, eventually he gave me, a super, super extra straight answer, which I appreciate, because I finally managed to communicate to him that that's kind of what I needed off of him. Just, tell me for sure, hey, Sean, do you like me, or do you not like me? Is all I want to know. And he was like, okay. So he responded that yes, he actually does super like me, apparently. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I proceeded to spend the next hour having a very panic attack, happy attack, if that makes any sense. My face was so red. I'm not even joking. I was turning into a volcano. I could not breathe. I was laughing. Oh, dude, it was so surreal. I've never had an experience like this before. Never. I have crushed on literally 2 people. Both of them are my best friends. We have Austin and Sean. I've crushed on both of them. And even my crush on Austin was not this ridiculous. It was not. And I'm not sure how I feel about that at all. Not at all. So, post that night, we finally have things a little bit figured out. Just a little bit, okay? We've discovered that we like each other. I don't know where this is going. I hope it's going somewhere good, because I like good things. Good things are good. But that is the end of the story for now, because there's not really much else to tell. There is, of course, the story of how our first date was ridiculously dull. It was duller than the only other date that I've ever had. And, that's really funny, but only if you'll listen to the story. So, I guess I'll have to tell that story in another video. Maybe in the next one I upload in 3 months. Who knows? But I will thank you all for listening to me ramble, because I'm sure that it's not easy. I talk too fast, but that's okay. Thanks you all for watching, and have a very pleasant day. Goodbye!